On this episode of ResiWeek, Dish helps integrators cut the cord, CEDIA has a national awareness survey, and is energy management the next big thing? All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 139. It's energy efficient.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by SDVOE, the platform for networked AV, and by Christie Digital.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Vin Bruno. He is the CEO of Reva. How are you doing, my friend?
Terrific. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. And we have Arlen Schwager. He is the managing editor of CE Pro. How are you, sir?
I'm great. It's Friday. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
It is. We're sneaking a show in early because I'm actually going on vacation next week.
Very nice.
Yeah. We'll see. We're taking the kids for the first time, so it'll be an adventure.
Where are you going?
We're going to the Muskokas, so north of Toronto, cottage country. Hopefully we'll catch some leaves, turning, and I'll play some golf and not get in trouble from my wife. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's kick this right off. Sorry?
Said enjoy it.
I'm hoping to. Right now the forecast is for rain, so we'll see what happens. Let's kick this right off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Dish Network is encouraging integrators to get into cord cutting and the cord cutting business. Demonstrated at CEDIA Expo 2018, Dish went over a lot of their Sling TV streaming services as well as their Air TV player that provides home tech integrators with opportunities to handle those clients and still get them into streaming services, i.e. they don't have to sell an actual physical dish. Arlen, I want to start with you on this because this came out of, obviously, your company. This has been a growing trend within the industry that we're seeing more and more consumers cutting cords, getting away from those massive cable and satellite bills.
Sure.
But for a long portion of time, a long period of time, and for a large number of integrators, selling dish services and installing satellite dishes and cable boxes and things like that were a large part of a lot of integrators' businesses. As the cord cutting has changed, that's obviously gone away a little bit. What does this kind of move mean for those integrators that were selling those services and offering those services?
Well, Dish's Frank DeFilippis is he's quoted throughout the article. And, he says a couple of things in there that are really hard to argue with. One being that the video content delivery is changing, and there's, appears to be no end in sight to what that's doing. And it's really changing, the way that integrators are going to be asking, talking to their potential clients about what kind of video they want and how they want it. And the other thing that he said, is that there aren't any business models or revenue models for dealers from streaming media. So, that's going to be your $64,000 question is, where do you go? If you have been doing satellite for a while and now you have to look for cord cutters, what do you do with that? And, I personally, I think, we're going to talk about what could be a core service in terms of, the core for the smart home. I think we're going to talk about energy management in an upcoming story. But really, I think when it comes to cord cutters, or at least trying to monetize this in some way, I think it has to be the home network, and the home network is going to be that core service. And of course, CEDIA has been pushing it, and other groups have been pushing the network. But really, when it gets down to it, these days, if consumers are really going to be relying on that much streaming for all their video needs. And, especially when it comes to even 4K these days, which we know Netflix is doing, YouTube is doing, they have to have reliable, bulletproof networking at home, and integrators need to show that they can provide that. And of course, the other sort of thing in tandem with that is that opens up the possibility, I think, for them to actually, beyond the products that they use to install the home networks, the monitoring that goes with it, and being able to get some recurring revenue from that. Because if anything should happen to the streaming ability, they're going to go to the integrator first and say, hey, what gives with this?
Very good. Vin, when we look at this, part of the conversation that always comes up, at least when it happens to me in my company, is we get homeowners, consumers asking us for recommendations in this. When it was cable and satellite, it was really pick A or B, whoever you dislike the least, use their service. Now that streaming is, so at the forefront, cord cutting is such a big deal. You no longer have to have that, $250 a month bill to get the majority of content you want. How much of the onus is on integrators to educate and explain and guide their customers down a path of this, cord cutting realm, if that's what they want to do? Because it's not really our business to do that, but it's falling on us, isn't it?
Well, it's part of the discovery process, right? How do you consume your content? What do you like to watch? I mean, and then it's really our opportunity to guide it and optimize it. Like the best Crestron systems that, I saw deployed are ones that don't have numbers for television stations at all, but they have your favorite, they have your favorite content. I would like CNBC and ESPN and Ion Television, and that's what the touchscreen, you press one of those three buttons, you didn't have to know that ESPN is on channel 36. So it really, it is up to us. But in that article, I don't know that Dish is encouraging cord cutting, but what they're doing is getting in front of it. What Frank stated was that it's a reality, it's happening. And I applaud Dish for thinking of our community in providing, devices for which we can profit from. Again, I go back to the days of when the iPad came out and everybody thought that Crestron was dead because now there's a cheaper touchscreen. The reality is, integrators don't make money, using iPads as touchscreens, and Crestron provides you profit opportunities. So Dish is going about this the right way. Cord cutting is a reality, and they came up with the black boxes, so to speak, the interfaces, in order for all of us to profit from, and to the integration community, the best integrators out there want to own the cable boxes. They want to own the Dish, and DirecTV interfaces, and then tie it into the whole home control system.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems. CEDIA has announced their key takeaways from a national awareness study. CEDIA has revealed their findings from the study that they put on and carried it out through the Farnsworth Group. A couple key takeaways were that when essentially home builders, architects, interior designers are subbing out smart home technology, this says that they're using a CEDIA contractor 45% of the time. 74% of interior designers and 61% of architects are looking for subcontractors to install smart home tech. One of the other really big ones is that 63% of home builders are doing this work themselves, and if they are contracting it out, they're tending to use an electrician. One of the really encouraging numbers out of all of this is that close to 70% of home builders are aware of CEDIA as well, or compared to 58% of architects and 35% of interior designers are aware of CEDIA. Vin, I want to start with you on this one. You've obviously been involved with CEDIA for quite a while, doing multiple things, but at a time being the CEO. I, for full disclosure, am on the board of CEDIA. So this is something that we pay a lot of attention to. But Vin, when you look at this study, there are some really interesting numbers here, and there are some numbers that are surprising. What of these numbers did you find the biggest surprise with?
The higher the number, the greater the surprise, because it sure doesn't seem like, enough home builders and remodelers are, utilizing our technology integration community. And, I live in an area where there's a lot of housing starts here, and, and really some all-star technology integrators. And they, to this day, this moment, having left a meeting with a couple of superstar technology integrators just moments ago, they're trying to crack into that, construction business. Mm-hmm. So, and these guys, they're Mike Restrepo's and Todd Anthony Pumas and Matt Montgomery. I mean, CEDIA, we have not done our job yet. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing is, what tech, is that study referring to? Are we talking about automated, door locks and doorbells? Because I highly doubt that we're talking about, full-blown control systems. And I know that we're not talking about home theaters, because there's, until I do my job right at REVA, we're not selling enough as a community home theaters through the builder market. So yeah, a lot of those numbers are striking. So I wish that I had the information about what technology we were referring to.
Yeah, very good. Arlen, when you look at this, and we talked kind of preamble to the show, just about some of these numbers and some of the situations. That is always the biggest concern, though, is that we don't usually know what is referred to and what the technology is that they're referring to when they say that they're installing it or they're looking to use a CEDIA member for. When you look at these kind of reports, knowing that we don't know what those numbers are directly, correlated to, where do you find the accuracy of these, kind of reports? Where's the validity in them?
It's a good question. I think really for something like this that, CEDIA comes out with, you really just have to talk to the members and see where that validity is, get the anecdotal evidence about that. Because, there are clearly some disconnects. So, it's one of those things, how exactly do you know what they're talking about? There was a number in there about the 74% of interior designers that are looking to use subcontractors, and only 35% of them said that they were aware of CEDIA. So the question is, well, how are they finding the people? It's a good question. Does this mean that, CEDIA guys should be using Google SEO better to try and make those connections? I can tell you in terms of interior designers, it's one of those things. I went on the Design Connection tour. They did two days at the CEDIA Expo, mm-hmm. Where they had, I believe it was 15 designers that they invited and hosted at the event, and they brought them around to 10 different booths and invited CE Pro to tag along to one of the days and check it out. And I can tell you that they were very green when it came to technology. So it is one of those things where you have to question it and really kind of dig in and talk to those people. And when I was on that tour, these designers were asking very basic questions. They were asking, how much does this stuff cost? They were asking in terms of looking at, say, a subwoofer. do we really need that thing out there? Happy to learn that you can place a subwoofer in the ceiling now. They were asking about, voice control. That was a big thing for them because I think at least for something like that, they have some awareness. But then there was a whole lot that, they need to understand that the integrators, you can't just slap voice control and say it's a smart home. There's work to be done to make it actually do what consumers want it to do. So, they were very impressed when they were at the Lutron booth, and, it was integrated with Josh AI and the audio system and the shades. And so when they came in and someone gave a voice command, everything worked like magic. And, you could see the designers' heads were kind of turning at that as a big wow factor where, we've known about that kind of thing being able to happen, the voice control obviously being added now, but for that kind of thing to happen for years. So, the question is where are the designers getting their information and how much are they really able to talk to their consumers about potential technology and then bring those projects to CE pros. And, if 74% are looking to subcontractors, how are they going to then find those integrators if only 35% are aware of CEDIA and they even know, what kind of key phrases to Google when it comes to that?
Well, and I think that's really you're hitting on the biggest point of all of this is awareness of CEDIA is good. The local awareness, for example, of my company in my city is better, but developing those relationships is likely needing to be paramount. Getting to a position where you have a good relationship with a builder or an integrator or an architect is key. And, I think a lot of times the messages get, shifted and not presented very well, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, like you said, for your company, it's, how do you market yourself to some of those other trades and get your name out there? And, from what Vin was saying about, a lot of housing starts where he is, I'm down in the Raleigh, the Triangle area in North Carolina, and there are tons of housing starts going on. And a lot of times you'll drive by and you'll see signs for the builders, but then you don't see other trades that are involved there. And wouldn't it be great to drive by and see like a model home where out in front of the home there's a sign like you would see for someone who does landscaping that, hey, here's the technologist. Let's get their sign out there if you're a builder. And I honestly don't know how much of that goes on. We hear about integrators going to like lunch and learn events and joining the the trade societies of some of these other groups so they can attend meetings and all that. But there's definitely a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Well, Arlen, in December, somebody sent me an email. And the subject in the email was, Alexa, how do I get in on this smart home thing? And it was, it's a National Association of Home Builder chapter. It was one of their meetings. It was in Bridgewater, New Jersey. And so I took the time to drive down there and, join the dinner. To my surprise, there were about 150 people in the room. And they included, home builders, electrical contractors, custom home builders, it was a pretty close club. I had the privilege of sitting with the president of the organization, the executive director of the organization, the owner of a custom home builder, and the owner of an electrical contracting firm. And I was about 6 feet from the presenters, two competing technology integrators, and they couldn't have done a better job of alienating everyone in the room. And I was infuriated by it as a CEDIA guy through and through. One of the comments was, you guys are just the home builder. We own the customer. Well, you own the customer. I heard a gasp behind me in one of the tables. Another comment was, if the TV goes out, you electricians in the room aren't going to take the call at 10 o'clock at night. We do. Well, you just implied to everyone in the room that, installing technology is going to make the TV go out because, builders like code. And when everything is to code, everything works. And so, my discussions with my group at my table, the owner of that custom home building company, he said to me, he goes, Vin, we want technology, but just can't we do it ourselves? And my response to that was, no, you can't do it yourself unless if you want to put, Alexas and Google Homes and, Ring doorbells, you could do that. That's not difficult to do, but that's not the whole home. You're not giving your clients what, the technology lifestyle provides. And I'm referring to a simplified technology lifestyle. So I'll share this with you about Reva. Reva is not a commodity item, and it is separate from the automation throughout the house. So, we have, one project in particular. A client came to us because they know Theo Kalamarakis, and we're about to finish, a $300,000 theater for this homeowner. So it's a young couple with 5 young children, and they built a beautiful theater inside a 100-year-old house. We brought in the technology integrator to do the installation of all the components and calibrate the Barco Loki projector. That integrator is thrilled with us because he walked away with more than $200,000 of whole home integration work. He put in a Control4 system. So in that particular case, the technology in the home led with the theater, which the clients understand because it's entertainment. The theater is independent of anybody else's control system. We just, deliver the theater with a Neo controller, and you can, start your movie, dim your lights, pause your movie, lights come on. That's simple, that's simplicity. And then it's up to the integrator to tie in the theater to the rest of the home, if in fact the home has it. And that's what I'm saying is the opportunities. And with respect to the builders, in my own campus, we're headquartered in Westchester County, New York. In my own campus, we have, these nice buildings, and just outside our building, Toll Brothers is building a 26-home community. So I walked in to the sales office and I said, how many homes are left to sell? These are $1.2 million homes. They said there are 6 left. I said, great. I want a house with a finished basement and a home theater. How do I get it? And this salesperson at Toll Brothers said, well, we'll hook you up with the finished basement, can't help you with the theater. And I said, boy, I've got something for you. And my point in that story is that there aren't enough of us technology professionals in this community communicating to home builders.
No, and I think that's the biggest thing that you read in this report is that the community, and to be fair, as an integrator, I can't rely on CEDIA to do that job for me. I can't rely on CEDIA to fish that pond for me. I have to go out and personally get in front of people. And that's something that we're not great at doing in the industry. So it's very encouraging that there's a lot of opportunity out there. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's hit our last story of the day real quick before we have to go. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today, making energy management the core of a smart home. The gist of the story is essentially that we can start to use energy management as a lead-in to full, technology within the home. And it's something that the majority of homeowners are very interested in, just the same way that you can use security as your selling point to get into the home. Arlen, I want to start with you on this one. When we look at energy and energy management, there are a lot of devices out there that we can automate and control that are energy related, whether it be light switches, the dongles that go into outlets, you can turn an outlet on and off.
Sure.
Things such as that. There's a ton of those on the market. There's not a lot of products on the market that are actually allowing you to measure and quantify what you're doing whenever you're, interfacing with those devices. Is that the holdup between, using energy management as a sales feature?
Well, I think it's one of those things, Matt, where, we've talked about energy management in the industry for years now. And really, if you look at smart integrators, they've been selling this energy management. If you've sold lighting control, basically, hopefully you've been pitching energy management as one of the key selling points for that. I want to say, several years ago, there was a real push to make everything green, and you got a lot of products around that energy monitoring, and you would have these dashboards where people could see kind of, here's where your energy is going. And, I think it's one of those things where, consumers are investing a lot of money, especially if they're going to be using a home automation and lighting control and all that. And they really want to see, if you could show them tangible results of that ROI, then that is something where, you can really prove your value as an integrator, and it can certainly expand into, all sorts of other avenues for revenue. But I think you're right. And, there are some products that do that, or do the energy monitoring, but not necessarily energy management, where you can then tie that in and schedule things. Now, of course, at CEDIA this year, we were seeing a lot of really big picture energy companies that were there, like Sonnen and Rosewater, and RacePoint was with Savant. And, they were doing activities where they were showing that you could do load management, load shedding, battery backup, things like that, where you can kind of tie it into automation and have basically stored energy be used at times when it wasn't peak utility hours. And so you could do things like that, but of course those systems are really up there in price. So I think one of the keys would be kind of getting something like that down in price. But those systems are also for humongous houses, really. Yeah. And if integrators are able to show those savings, or take a bill, have your say, hey, Mr. Client, I'd love to take a look at your bill and show you the difference between before and after. It's definitely something where integrators can go in and sort of prove their worth. But energy management on its own, I think, has been a key selling point for years and years.
Very good. Then we're going to close with this, give you the last word on it. With things like Eaton smart breakers and stuff like that, we are really starting to get there to where you're not required to have all these additional pieces of hardware to start monitoring it. Now that is, here and shipping, has energy management become really the next big thing?
No, it has not become the next big thing, unfortunately. And I'll say this, with CEDIA, I used to talk to integrators and homeowners and say, a CEDIA home is elegant, it's fun, it's luxurious, it's safe, and I would end with, and it's energy efficient. Mm-hmm. And in the residential community, you don't feel like the passion for energy management. In the commercial side, right, where in buildings it's lighting, escalators, and elevators that use most of a building's energy, then the BIM systems there actually show an ROI. Yeah. And I feel like we're at a point where the integrators don't make a big enough deal about how automation in the home can actually pay for itself over time with energy. Lutron tried it with a campaign that I absolutely loved with their dimmers. Put two dimmers in your house, and over time, this is how much energy you'll save. And it was a brilliant campaign that had a short life for some reason. Yeah.
Very good, gentlemen. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Vin, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Reva, where can they do that?
Well, try our configurator and design your own theater at reva.com and hit the configurator tab. You can reach me at vincent.bruno@reva.com, RAYVA. And my hashtag is @VinBruno61 for Twitter and Facebook, and I'm easy enough to find.
Beautiful. Thanks again for being here. Arlen, always a pleasure when you're here. Tell people where they can connect with you and see more about CE Pro.
Sure. Thanks again for having me on today, Matt. You can go to cepro.com for all of our editorial coverage. I'm on Twitter at Arlen Schweiger. I'm on LinkedIn. And there's, Twitter obviously for CE Pro as well. CE_PRO.
Beautiful. Thanks again for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.